Good afternoon, everyone. In today's video, I'd like to compare Visa versus MasterCard. Both of these stocks had a fairly significant sell-off today. They both appeared on our live scanner with the volatility box. MasterCard was down 5.6%. Visa was down a little bit less, I think 3.58%. So Visa was a little bit more contained. We'll take a look at both of these stocks to try and find which looks stronger between the two, which has an overall longer term setup, which is still active, and today's sell-off actually gives us a better opportunity to enter that trade and buy the dip. So that's really just keep in mind perspective of a longer term trade for those of you that are looking to try and participate in this cashless trend that we're seeing as a thematic shift overall. Now, starting off here first with MasterCard, the thing that I'll point out here first is by coming into a 1 minute chart, and if we load in both our aggressive and conservative volatility box, you should notice that really just looks like a sandwich. The boxes have in fact inverted where we have the green clouds below our orange clouds, and that doesn't usually happen. That in itself means that we had a significant amount of volatility today in Visa and MasterCard. This happened in both places that our volatility box models couldn't contain. Now, for those of you that are wondering, hey, what's the real significance of this? If I come in here to something like, say, a 5 minute, 5 day chart, you'll notice what has happened before today's sell off here. For the most part, we've stayed inside of our volatility box clouds, and whenever we did get a sell off, we held those clouds perfectly, giving us a really nice opportunity to buy. Today, that wasn't the case, at least in MasterCard. Today in MasterCard, we broke outside of our aggressive clouds, we broke outside of our conservative clouds, all of which suggests that the amount of selling pressure we saw in MasterCard today was atypical and, to me, a sign of longer term volatility in MasterCard. Now, if I keep expanding this just a little bit more to try and prove this point, so let's go back to something like, say, 30 days here. And I'll scroll through this fairly quickly, but what you should notice is we didn't really see any sort of movement like we're seeing today, right? For the most part, price action has stayed inside of our volatility box clouds. It's given us a nice opportunity to not only fade, but also try and use the gray target lines for places in which you're looking to take off positions. Today, that was absolutely not the case in MasterCard. This was by all means a significant sell-off, at least in my eyes. Now, if I switch gears here to something like, say, Visa, Visa looks a little bit different. Visa, again, today, a bit more contained compared to MasterCard. The clouds here haven't inverted. We did see we broke outside of our aggressive volatility box clouds, but our conservative clouds here still held. And so that's the one positive sign here. If you just compare this side by side, let me try and make this two different charts, and then I'll load in MasterCard here. Let's not worry too much about the style. And then I'll come into a 1 minute time frame chart. In MasterCard, we went well outside of the clouds here. Really just looks like a whole collapsed movement. In Visa, we still held the conservative cloud. So in terms of where volatility was a bit more manageable, that's Visa. Now, Visa is my favorite here for a handful of reasons, and let me go through that. So starting off here first on our daily time frame chart, let me go ahead and remove both the aggressive and conservative volatility box studies. So now let's highlight the reasons why I think Visa still looks interesting. First off, recently, so this is in December of 2020, we had two slingshot squeezes. Now, both of these squeezes already hit what would be their target. We had the squeeze already fire if I load that in. And so this trade isn't active, but I think still helps to kind of add to this idea that we overall expect bullish movement in Visa. So this was off of a daily time frame chart here where we had these two signals. They both fired. This was a 9 winner, 1 loser trade, and we saw that this continued to meet that trend where we had a winner. So A, the trend there was met. Overall, we had a squeeze that just fired long. Now looking for this to really just gain a little bit of momentum here, try and chop around sideways before we see the next squeeze forming and hopefully takes us to the next level here. Now, if I come in here to a weekly time frame chart instead, off of the weekly time frame chart, we have 1, 2, and 3 squeeze signals plotting. We also have one slingshot squeeze that's plotting. Let me go ahead and load in that back tester here for the slingshot squeeze to get an idea of how effective this weekly signal is. So let's go back instead of 3 years, maybe something like, say, 15 years. So off of the past 15 years, we've only seen the signal 2 times in Visa, and both of those times were winners for a nice average move of 9.96%, and that's starting with the close. So now in today's case, for example, if we come in with the sell-off here, we're getting an opportunity to enter fairly close to the weekly market pulse line, which is still in an overall stage of acceleration. So that's where I think Visa looks very interesting, especially if you have an opportunity to buy somewhere around that 200 mark. The market pulse takes you at 198.18. The 786 retracements at 197. So really just right around here, you have a good amount of cluster. You have a squeeze that's looking like it's about to fire long. We also have earnings that's coming up, but that earnings, at least as of right now, is scheduled to be, I think, 128, 2021. You want to confirm that date via Visa's investor website as well. But in terms of an overall trade idea here, Visa looks very interesting for this longer term perspective to play not only the slingshot squeeze move, looking for a pullback to the market pulse, looking for the squeeze to fire long, looking for an opportunity off of this daily time frame chart to try and use the sell off today to really let the stock catch its breath, gather a bit of momentum, and then again continue in the direction of the trend. Now, if I contrast this again with MasterCard here, we come in one more time to that weekly time frame chart. MasterCard should look a little bit different off that weekly time frame chart, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 bearish signals in MasterCard compared to the bullish signals that we're seeing in Visa. Now, of course, these bearish signals are the ones that we ignore, considering that we have an overall stage of acceleration here with a green market pulse, and we're still looking for that green arrow. But in the case of Visa, we've already seen it, and we've seen it multiple times. We've seen the squeeze signal give us 1, 2, 3 signals. We've seen the slingshot squeeze give us one signal. We've seen an edge signal. We still have yet to hit the 1272, which is at 236. We still have the overall thematic shift here of, in my opinion, at least a more cashless movement as the world continues to reduce its dependency on cash. And we also have other competitors like Square, for example, coming out with things like the Cash App, which is again suggesting to this overall idea that cashless seems to be the way of the future. This is our opportunity to try and participate in it. And if we have an opportunity in Visa to try and enter around that 197, 200 mark, I think that makes for a very, very interesting trade opportunity. So hopefully this helps to put in perspective today's sell-off here between Visa and MasterCard, using the volatility box here to get an idea of which of the two markets were more volatile, where we have the very clear answer, which is MasterCard was the more volatile one. We saw that demonstrated with the actual volatility box here going completely inverted compared to something like Visa, where again, still a bit more manageable, where if we start to see this bounce from that 197 zone, makes for a really interesting longer term trade idea off the weekly charts. All right, hope this video helps. Take care, everyone. Good luck trading, and we'll see you in the next update.